I walked into the tasting room of High Castle Vineyards expecting a harvest strategy meeting. The scent of French oak and fermenting grapes usually grounded me, reminding me why I spent 18 hours a day in the soil. But today, the air felt sterile, cold. My father, Richard, sat at the head of the mahogany table. My mother, Cynthia, was to his right, her posture rigid. My sister Stephanie and brother Tyler flanked them. They were not seated for a discussion. They were arranged like a tribunal. There were no harvest reports on the table, no yield projections, just a single, thick document resting in front of my father. He did not look up when I entered. He just slid the paperwork across the polished wood. It stopped exactly at the edge, waiting for me. "Have a seat, Laura," Richard said. His voice lacked any warmth. It was clinical, like he was pruning a dead vine. I remained standing. I picked up the document. The title page was bold and unambiguous. Formal dissolution of familial and business ties. I flipped through the pages. My eyes caught phrases that made my stomach turn. Irrevocable severance. Termination of inheritance rights. Permanent exclusion from estate grounds. "What is this?" I asked. My voice steadied despite the sudden drop in the room's temperature. "It is a correction," my mother said, smoothing her skirt. "We cannot have your experiments tarnishing the High Castle name any longer. Botanical spirits? Gin? It is embarrassing, Laura. We are a heritage brand. We produce award-winning Cabernet, not moonshine." "It is not moonshine," I said. "It is sustainable distillation. I am using the crop waste. The grapes you throw away." "It is debasing," Stephanie cut in. Her golden hair was perfect, her lawyer's suit sharp, "and it ends today. You sign this, you take the severance check, and you leave the valley. You change your last name professionally. We do not want your little side project associated with us." "Severance?" I looked at the check attached to the last page. $5,000. $5,000 for 25 years of labor. For managing the soil health, for fixing the irrigation systems when Tyler forgot, for modernizing the fermentation logs, $5,000 to erase my identity. "It is generous," Tyler sneered. "Considering you have been distracting the staff with your little chemistry set." I looked at them. The faces staring back at me were no longer family, they were liabilities. They were not sad, they were relieved, they thought they were cutting out a cancer. They had no idea they were severing their own lifeline. Pause for a second. Have you ever walked into a room thinking you were safe, only to realize you were walking into a trap set by the people who were supposed to protect you? Drop a yes in the comments and tell me where you are listening from. I want to know I am not the only one. I stared at the pages. Irrevocable, that was a legal term for dead to us. They were killing me off administratively. My eyes scanned the clauses. I was being excised like a bad vintage. No access to the soil I had tested daily for acidity. No rights to the name I had carried. No claim to the future I was actively building. I looked up at my mother. Cynthia was studying her manicure, a perfect shade of blush pink that matched the roses in the garden, roses I had grafted myself 3 years ago to resist the aphids. "Mom?" I asked. It was not a plea. It was a final audit. I needed to see if there was any equity left in that relationship. She did not look up. "It is for the best, Laura. We have to protect the brand." The brand. Not her daughter. The brand. The heavy fountain pen sat next to the document, cold metal waiting for warm blood. My hand hovered over the signature line. And there it was. The invisible chain. It yanked at my chest. A sudden, violent ache that almost made me drop the pen. It was not fear. It was the trauma bond, that ancient, sticky web that tells you leaving is a sin. "You owe them," a voice whispered. "They are your blood." I thought of my grandfather, Arthur. He was the one who taught me that tradition is just an experiment that worked. He would be ashamed of this room. He would be ashamed of the stagnation. "If you sign this, you lose him, too," the voice lied. "You lose the only place you have ever belonged." I closed my eyes for a microsecond. This was not just ink on paper. This was amputation. I was cutting off a limb to save the body. If I stayed, I would wither. I would become like them, ornamental, hollow, rotting from the inside out. To save the legacy Arthur built, I had to destroy my connection to the people currently ruining it. The chain tightened, choking me. Just apologize, it begged. Just throw away your research and be the daughter they want. But I looked at the check again. $5,000. That was their valuation of my soul. The chain snapped. It did not break with a bang, it broke with a click. The realization was quiet and absolute. I did not owe them my future. I had already paid my dues in sweat and silence. I gripped the pen. The hesitation vanished. Replaced by a cold, surgical precision, I signed my name, Laura. I dated it. October 14th. The sound of paper sliding on wood was the only noise in the room as I pushed the document back. Done, I said. My voice did not shake. Richard blinked, surprised by the speed. He reached for the check, but I snatched it off the table before he could perform the false benevolence of handing it to me. $5,000, I said, folding it crisply. Consider this the down payment on my silence. I stood up. I did not look back at the vineyard view through the window. I did not look at Stephanie's smirk or Tyler's relief. I looked at the door. Goodbye, I said. I walked out. I did not slam the door. I closed it gently, firmly, sealing the tomb behind me. The air outside was hot and smelled of dust. I took a breath. It was the first breath of air that belonged entirely to me. I drove through the vineyard's archway, but I did not head for the highway. I turned down the dirt service road that led to the old equipment sheds. My lab was a converted maintenance garage hidden behind a row of overgrown cypress trees. Inside, it smelled of juniper, rosemary, and possibility. My partner, Jordan, was already there, leaning against a stainless steel fermentation tank. He was scrolling through a tablet, his face illuminated by the blue light. He looked up as I entered, taking in the check still clutched in my hand. They did it? He asked. They did it, I confirmed, tossing the check onto a workbench cluttered with beakers and hydrometers. $5,000. The price of my freedom. Jordan picked up the check, whistling low. Cheap. Considering without you, they would have been insolvent 18 months ago. I walked to the distillation column I had built myself from scavenged copper. They do not know that. They think the silent angel investor was some benevolent venture capitalist who loved their heritage. They never bothered to trace the LLC back to me. Alchemy Spirits, Jordan said, tapping the logo on a bottle of clear botanical gin sitting on the shelf, founded by Laura Vance, funded by the sale of waste. I picked up the bottle. The label was minimalist, modern. Inside was the liquid proof of my family's failure and my success. For 5 years, Richard had ordered tons of smoke-tainted grapes ruined by the wildfires to be dumped. He called it garbage. I called it raw material. I had taken that garbage, distilled it to remove the smoke compounds, and infused it with the wild botanicals that grew between the vines, sage, bay laurel, fennel. While High Castle was losing market share, refusing to adapt to a changing climate, Alchemy Spirits was winning blind taste tests in San Francisco and Tokyo. I had not just been playing scientist. I had been building a lifeboat, and I had been using the profits to secretly pay High Castle's payroll, utility bills, and property taxes through a shell company. So, Jordan said, putting the check down, the angel just left the building. What happens when the next payroll cycle hits in 2 weeks? The money stops, I said. My voice was calm, devoid of the panic I used to feel whenever I thought about the vineyard failing. I am no longer the silent partner. I am the competition. I packed my laptop, my notebooks, and the prototype of my newest blend, a brandy aged in charred oak from the fire-damaged trees. We need a new headquarters, I told Jordan. Something that does not hide in the shadows. Something loud. I have been looking at that old warehouse in the arts district, Jordan smiled. It has great light, and it is far away from here. I looked around the garage one last time. This is where I had saved them over and over again without a single thank you. Now it was just a shed. Let us go, I said. I am done making wine from sour grapes. As we drove away, my phone buzzed. A text from Stephanie. Change your number. We don't want reporters calling. I threw the phone into the passenger seat. They were worried about reporters. They should have been worried about the ledger, because the only thing keeping the wolves from the door had just walked out with the keys. 2 weeks later, the night of the High Castle Harvest Gala, I was standing in the fermentation hall of Alchemy Spirit's new headquarters. The warehouse was raw concrete and exposed steel, but Jordan had already installed the state-of-the-art climate control systems. It was a cathedral of efficiency. I pulled up the live stream on my tablet. The gala was being broadcast on the Vineyard's social media page. The camera panned across the lawn of High Castle. It was a spectacle of excess. Silk tents, a live string quartet, and magnum bottles of the 2018 Reserve being poured like water. My father was at the podium, raising a glass. He looked triumphant. Tonight, he announced, his voice booming, we celebrate a return to our roots. We celebrate purity. While others chase fads and chemistry sets, High Castle remains the guardian of tradition. The crowd applauded. My mother beamed beside him, draped in emeralds. Then Stephanie took the microphone. We have trimmed the fat, she said, smiling for the cameras. We have removed the distractions so we can focus on what matters, the legacy. I scrolled through the comments. Stephanie had posted a photo of the family minus me with the caption, finally back to our roots, no more distractions. I watched them drink, I watched them laugh, I watched them celebrate their own purity while standing on a financial sinkhole. And for the first time, I did not feel angry. I felt pity. Why are they doing this? I wondered. They know the accounts are empty. They know the soil is dying. Why throw a party they cannot afford? Then it hit me. The delusion was not a mistake. It was a drug. They were addicted to the image of power because they had lost the substance of it. Disowning me was not about protecting the brand. It was about protecting their egos. They needed to feel superior to someone, and I was the convenient sacrifice. By cutting me out, they could pretend the rot was not inside the house. They could pretend the failure was external. It was a performance, a desperate, expensive performance to convince themselves they were still kings. They look happy, Jordan said, looking over my shoulder. They look high, I corrected. They are drunk on their own mythology. I zoomed in on the champagne flute in my father's hand. It was a vintage cuvée, $300 a bottle. I did the math in my head. The tent rental, the catering, the band. They were spending the last of the operational reserves on a party to prove they did not need money. Jordan, I said, turning off the tablet, pull the trigger on the debt acquisition. Are you sure? He asked. Once we do this, there is no going back. I am sure, I said. They are celebrating the past. I am buying the future. I walked over to the distillation controls. The digital display glowed green. Everything was precise. Everything was real. Let them have their party, I said. It is the last one they will ever throw. 30 days later, the illusion shattered. It started with a phone call Richard had been dreading but refusing to believe would come. He was in his office, staring at a spreadsheet that was more red ink than black when the phone rang. It was Mr. Henderson, the bank manager who had handled High Castle's accounts for 20 years. Richard Henderson's voice was tight. I am calling about the operational credit line. The monthly transfer did not come through. It is just a glitch, Richard said, waving a hand as if he could dismiss the problem physically. Give it 24 hours. The silent partner is always reliable. We did, Henderson said, and we contacted the LLC. They informed us that all future funding has been terminated, effective immediately. Richard froze. Terminated? That is impossible. They love this vineyard. They have poured millions into it. They have withdrawn their guarantee, Richard, and without that backing, Your debt to equity ratio is underwater. We have to freeze the accounts. You cannot do that, Richard shouted, standing up. We just had the gala. We have orders to fill. You have 30 days to cover the shortfall, or we initiate default proceedings. I am sorry. The line went dead. Richard sat down heavily. The silence in the office was deafening. He looked out the window at the vines he claimed to protect, vines he could not afford to water next week. He called Cynthia. He called Stephanie. Panic, raw and ugly, began to set in. Across town, in the glass-walled conference room of Alchemy Spirits, the mood was very different. I sat at the head of the table, not as a disowned daughter, but as a CEO of the fastest-growing spirits brand on the West Coast. Jordan sat to my right, projecting financial models onto the screen. They are in default as of this morning, Jordan said. Henderson called me 10 minutes ago. He is panicking. He knows if they go under, the bank takes a hit on the land value. Good, I said. I did not smile. This was not funny. It was business. We have two options, Jordan continued. We can let them go to auction and bid against developers who want to turn it into condos. Or we can buy the debt now. Buy the debt, I said instantly. I do not want the land turned into condos. I want the land. It is a hostile move, Laura. Once you own the debt, you own the leverage. You can force the sale on your terms. I know, I said. I looked at the map of the valley projected on the wall. High Castle was the heart of it. Do it. Acquire the note. Every cent. Jordan nodded and started typing. You know they are going to hate you for this. They already hate me, I said, leaning back. They hate me because I am the only one who saw the cliff they were driving toward. Now, I am just the one building the bridge at the bottom. I stood up and walked to the window. I could see the distant hills of the valley. My family was out there, right now, scrambling, blaming the bank, blaming the economy, blaming everyone but themselves. They were about to find out that the silent angel they had relied on was the very person they had cast out. Prepare the acquisition papers, I told Jordan. I want everything ready by Friday. And Jordan, make sure my name is on the cover page, in bold. The game had changed. I was not just the competition anymore. I was the creditor, and the bill was due. We acquired the debt on Friday. By Monday, we were conducting the mandatory due diligence. My team of analysts swarmed the vineyard's records like locusts, but I was not interested in the financials. I knew the financials. I was interested in the soil. Tyler, my brother, had been the director of operations for the last 3 years. He was the golden boy, the MBA student who supposedly knew how to optimize yields. He had always mocked my obsession with organic farming, calling it expensive hippie nonsense. But the brand High Castle was built on its 100% Heritage Organic certification. It was the only reason we could charge $80 a bottle. I walked to the north block of the vineyard with a soil probe. The ground felt hard, compacted. It did not smell like earth. It smelled sterile. I took a sample and ran it through the portable spectrometer I had brought. The results flashed on the screen. Nitrogen levels were off the charts. Synthetic nitrates, my heart hammered. I moved to the next row. Same result. I checked the irrigation logs on the company server using the old admin password. Tyler had never bothered to change. I found the purchase orders. They were buried under a shell vendor named Green Grow Solutions, but the product codes were clear: industrial-grade chemical fertilizers, banned pesticides. Tyler had not just been lazy. He had been cutting corners to boost short-term yield, likely to hide the declining production numbers from our father. He had been poisoning the soil for 3 years. What did you find? Jordan asked, walking up the row behind me. I handed him the spectrometer. Look at the nitrate levels. Jordan squinted at the screen. That is impossible. This is a certified organic estate. Not anymore, I said, my voice shaking with rage. Tyler has been using synthetic fertilizers, and not just a little. He has been dumping it to force the vines to produce. That is fraud, Jordan said, his face paling. If the certification board finds out, they lose the certification. I finished. They lose the premium pricing, they lose the shelf space, the brand is worthless. I pulled up the compliance reports Tyler had filed with the state. They were all forged, fake soil tests, fake vendor invoices. He had been lying to the regulators, to the customers, and probably to our father. This changes everything, I said. This is not just about debt anymore. This is criminal. We cannot buy this, Jordan said. The liability alone. No, I said, looking at the sick vines. We have to buy it. If we do not, the bank will sell it to developers who will pave over this soil before anyone realizes it is toxic. If I own it, I can fix it. It will take 5 years of remediation, cover crops, no harvest, but I can fix it. And your family? Jordan asked. They just lost their last card, I said. They cannot negotiate. They cannot fight. They are sitting on a ticking time bomb of fraud. I took a picture of the spectrometer reading. I downloaded the fake invoices. I had the smoking gun. Let us go, I said. It is time to end this. I walked back to the car, the evidence burning a hole in my pocket. The anger I felt was not for me anymore. It was for the land. They had betrayed me, yes, but betraying the soil, that was unforgivable. That was a sin against the future. And Tyler was going to answer for it. The bank forced the auction 3 days later. It was held in the same tasting room where they had tried to erase me. The air was thick with panic. My family sat huddled together, Richard looking gray, Cynthia weeping silently into a handkerchief, Stephanie frantically texting on her phone, and Tyler staring at the floor, knowing the noose was tightening. They were waiting for a miracle. They were waiting for a foreign investor their broker had promised might save them. The double doors opened. I walked in. Jordan was a step behind me, carrying the briefcase. Richard stood up, confused. Then a flicker of desperate hope crossed his face. Laura, thank God. You heard. You came to help. Silence was the only answer they deserved. I bypassed the guest chairs and took the head of the table, his seat. I am the investor, I said. The room went silent. Stephanie dropped her phone. Tyler looked up, terror in his eyes. You? Richard whispered. But how? Alchemy Spirits acquired the note from the bank this morning. Jordan announced, opening the briefcase. We own the debt, and we are exercising our right to foreclose immediately due to breach of contract and criminal fraud. Fraud? Cynthia gasped. What fraud? I slid the soil report across the table. It landed in front of Tyler. Ask your son. Ask him about the synthetic nitrates. Ask him about the fake invoices. Ask him why he poisoned the land you claim to love. Tyler shrank back. Richard grabbed the report, his hands shaking. He read the numbers. He looked at Tyler, betrayal dawning on his face. You knew? Richard asked Tyler. You did this? I had to, Tyler shouted. The yields were dropping. I was trying to save the harvest. You killed the soil, I said coldly, and you killed the brand. I turned to Richard. The organic certification is gone. The premium pricing is gone. The reputation is gone. You have nothing left to sell but the dirt itself. And I am buying it. I placed the purchase agreement on the table. This transfers the deed to Alchemy Spirits. It clears the debt, but it comes with conditions. Conditions? Stephanie asked, her voice trembling. Tyler is fired. Immediately. He will face the regulators on his own. I will not protect him. Tyler stood up to protest, but Richard silenced him with a look of pure disgust. Richard and Cynthia, I continued, you are removed from all operational decisions. You have no power. You have no vote. So you are kicking us out? Cynthia sobbed. After all these years? No, I said. I am not like you. I do not throw away things that are broken. I fix them. I pointed out the window to the old, rotting barn on the edge of the property. That barn is being renovated. It will be the new headquarters for the Legacy Academy. It is a training center for sustainable agriculture. I am hiring you. Hiring us? Richard blinked. As apprentices, I said. You will learn how to farm without poison. You will learn how to listen to the soil. You will work the vines with your hands, not from an office. If you want to stay on this land, you will earn it every single day." Richard looked at the agreement. Then he looked at me. He did not see the daughter he had dismissed. He saw the matriarch he should have been. He picked up the pen. His hand was heavy, but he signed. I took the papers. "Welcome to the future," I said. 6 months later, the valley was green again. The remediation cover crops were blooming in the North Block, pulling the toxins from the earth. The air smelled of sage and hope. I sat on the porch of the main house, watching the sunset. In the distance, I could see my father and mother in the fields. They were wearing work boots and gloves, pruning the vines under the supervision of my head agronomist. They looked tired. They looked humble, and for the first time in my life, they looked happy. They were finally connecting with the land instead of just owning it. I poured a glass from a bottle with no label. It was the infinity bottle, the master blend I had created from the very first batch of ruined grapes. It tasted like smoke and victory. I was not just the owner of High Castle. I was its healer. I had taken the waste they despised and turned it into the gold that saved them. They had tried to bury me, but they forgot I was a seed. I took a sip, letting the complex flavors linger. The revenge was not in the owning. It was in the growing. It was in proving that the only way to keep a legacy is to be willing to change it. I rebuilt my legacy from the ashes of their rejection. Now, I want to ask you, what is the one thing in your life you need to stop trying to fix and start trying to own? Tell me in the comments. And if this story fired you up, hit that share button because the best revenge is building something they cannot tear down.